for it to die. Rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Welcome again, folks. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a couple of things I needed to go do, and that's on me. It's on me. Didn't plan my day properly at all. So, either way, thank you. Welcome to a journey. Today we have Mitch, and he will be giving his short synopsis at first for his life story, and then we'll dive into his story. So, with that being said, please welcome Mitch to the show. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing okay,
Good,
Marlon.
good. Um, I'm going to give you a minute or so to give a brief rundown of who you are and where you've been and all that stuff, and I'll jump back on and we'll kick it off.
I grew up on a farm in the 60s, early 70s in southern Minnesota on a hog farm, oldest of five. My dad was a Korean War Air Force vet, so I did the Air Force crew chief thing right after the NAM. I'm a NAM Air vet, 12 years combined service, active and reserves. Spent time sleeping near airplanes with bright candlesticks, and I've also had to take care of a patient that was in a 3-point body cast, and he had to have his private areas cleaned. As far as fitting into the farm, my dad was a fair father growing up. The trouble is that after I've been away from the farm, it was difficult for my dad to integrate me back in at the level that I felt that I could assume, because he was in a critical parent mode, and I was talking to me like I was a young teenager, and I was going, my God, I just got done sleeping near airplanes, ready to roll in 15 minutes and taking care, and you're talking to me like this. I started school, dropped out, didn't know what I wanted to do because my dad constant criticism. One day I went home and switched from because of the breakdown in family communication. I went depression, used weed, cannabis to deal with the depression. Got involved in a dysfunctional relationship for 20 years and been divorced 20 years now. And post-divorce, I did some pretty significant recovery work. I've shared a lot of this with Marlon because so he knows how to ask the right questions. Back to you, Marlon.
Spectacular. Again, thank you for being here. Two obvious things jump out at me as you were sharing. The era that you grew up, there was still a pretty strong family emphasis, but you said that once you left and went to enroll and came back, there was a massive disconnect between you and your father. How was the relationship before that happened? Were you guys like super close, or was it more of a he's dad, do what he says, there's no real bond there?
Let's go back even further. My dad tried to farm with his dad in northern Missouri, and because he couldn't, he joined the Air Force right at the end of the Korean War. And then he got stationed here in Minnesota, met my mom, and tried to go back after his Air Force, and he couldn't farm with his dad. So there's generational issues there. I was basically 17 going on 21 when I went in, 22 going on 30 when I got done with my medical training, and being talked to like I was 14, 15 years old, which was a real big disconnect with me.
Did you ever feel the need to try and defend yourself to him, or was that something that took place, and is that the reason why you ended up leaving?
Wait. Can you rephrase the defense?
During the time that he started talking to you as though you were a child, did you ever try to retaliate verbally, or did you have still a level of father-like respect for him to not do that?
I did have a father-like respect for several years, but there were some phone calls that I burnt the phone lines pretty bad.
Did you ever rectify those before he passed?
My dad is still alive.
Oh, still good, good. Have you ever rectified that?
To the best of my ability.
Is it
Part of the problem is that my dad a year ago, he said something to the effect of, "I warned you 40 years ago not to marry the woman you married." And this was 20 years after divorce. You know, it's like with that type of thinking, it's like I've given up. You know, it hurts, it's disappointing, and all that, because my son says that me and my dad have a political worldview right of center, similar to you. This is why I followed you, because I see some very same things happening with the world, and you got your battle to fight there, and you know I've got a battle. I sense my calling is to support micro enterprise starting in Liberia.
Mm-hmm. So, how often do you talk to your father now? At all, or once in a while, or what?
Very infrequent. You know, maybe once every 3 or 4 months. You know, maybe text, email, nothing verbal or voice.
And how's the relationship with mom?
My mom died here about like 7 years ago, something like that.
And was that different than your father's relationship? Was that better?
Basically, my mom was always able to talk to me, even in high school as an adult. You know, being the oldest, it was better. The problem with her, she was caught between the oldest son and her husband, and she had to side with her husband.
Did you ever feel like she should have done more to be on your side, or did you respect the fact that she stood with your father?
I have never really thought about being angry about it. You know. So I respect she did what she had to do, coming from a German Lutheran background.
Right. It's emphasized. So how many children do you have?
I've got a son, 37, and a daughter, 34.
And is your relationship with them better than you would say your relationship with your father is?
Yes, I'm able to communicate with them, pretty much live in the present. Not real good communication for various reasons, but they don't get the critical parent mode from them, and my daughter is, with some of her challenges, is turning to me for advice and listening, or at least venting to me.
Right. How did they handle the divorce?
My son did some things with cutting. And the daughter ended up in foster care because mom was trying to put down some boundaries when she herself wasn't observing boundaries.
So overall, it seems like you've had to deal with quite a dysfunctional family life, both on your own growing up and during your marriage and post. What kind of steps have you taken to try and rectify the gaps that you see in the relationship with yourself and your children?
With me, it was doing, even Child Protective Services got involved in our life, and they didn't invite me to be part of the solution. So as a
Hmm.
result, I did some 6 years of some pretty extensive recovery work. Uh, as far as I've learned to communicate with them and not to let go and to forgive. And one of the things is I don't hold their past over them.
Hmm.
I try to help them, deal with the present problems in the present and not bring up. I don't bring up the past. I know that.
Do you and your ex-wife have a relationship at all today? Friends, anything like that?
I would say, friends, it has gotten further away. She has some problems with kidneys and always having fibromyalgia and having strokes and seizures and all that.
Hmm.
Uh,
And
we're just on two different wavelengths.
your kids have a good relationship with her?
Uh, they do what they gotta do.
Hmm.
As far as good, my daughter has moved up here from Mankato up here to the Twin Cities and to do some of her own recovery work in her late 20s, early 30s. And she is in a much better spot today away from her mom. Her mom is, because of her medical problems, my son has to stepped up to be the parent of his mom.
Hmm. How the dysfunction that goes on now and that went on back when you were younger. Do your children have any children, by the way?
My son has a 1-year-old daughter with a girlfriend, not married.
Hmm.
My daughter just had another baby girl by the same father that she lost her two boys to before COVID.
Hmm.
So it's been the same father through all three, and Child Protective Services is now involved in their life, and this is where I am supporting my daughter.
It sounds like there's something clinging to your family line. Like something has plagued the relational aspect of your guys' life to the point where it's almost succeeding in the destruction of not just communication but interaction. Um, have you ever um, what would you describe your view of God as?
My view of God has changed through the years. Uh, when I went to Lutheran parochial school, and my view of God was more of a deity. He was up there sitting on a throne someplace and really not that involved with people. Since then, I've had some spiritual experiences that I have to. They're my personal experiences. My ex-wife had a few, and I've had some miracle healings with prayer. Not instant, but more progressive. It's like I meet I meet God. For me, I meet God, as I jokingly said, I meet God at the intersection of quantum science and molecular biology.
Hmm.
God is my my my, my sister talks about meeting God, Jesus at the cross. I meet God at or the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, and being a spiritual warrior.
So
Because
do you think,
this
go ahead.
this world, that our society is going to need spiritual warriors of the light side. you did something recently about the rapture, and I've said too many Christians that they turn to the rapture as a get out of off of earth free card
Mm-hmm.
instead of the Lord's Prayer, putting a demand pull on heaven to bring heaven to earth. Paraphrasing,
Yeah. Do you think he has any sway on the relations that you have here on earth with family and friends and people?
God,
Yeah.
as much as I surrender, as much as I invite him into it.
How much have you?
I've done a significant amount of healing on my end, and forgiveness and letting go, and doing spiritual healing and deliverance with a couple different churches.
Um,
Because when divorce went down, I knew that I would have to be the one to model to my son, my daughter, how to bounce and clean himself off and keep on trucking. So yeah, I knew that the spiritual stuff had to be dealt with.
do you think he has full control over things, regardless of whether you allow him to or not?
God,
Yeah.
interesting questions. This is kind of what separates the Muslims from the Christians. The Muslims, from what I have gathered, it's like it will be what it is because it's God's will. Where it's like the Christians, to me, it's more God is not going to do anything without people being the hands and the feet, or being the servant leaders that he needs.
But for you, is it more of a you have to give him the reins or he can take it?
I have jokingly said I got a Jacob anointing. I have wrestled with God because I don't want God to get too far away from me, and God wrestles with me because God doesn't want me to get too far away from Him.
So he dislocates your hip once in a while, huh?
That's right. And that happened where I had sciatic nerve pain until I got some prayer healing for that.
The reason I asked that is it seems like there is not just a needing of him to intervene in a more intense way, but intervene in a retroactive way as well. When you said that you didn't really interact with your pops anymore, and it's sporadic and by text and hardly ever usually one on one, and that you and your kids interact, but it's also kind of a little bit standoffish, a little better, but it's not awesome. It seems as though there is a need for God to step in and do a little bit more than just be spiritual. Like he has to undo years of repetitive wrong behavior between individuals in a household. You being the father of two and the grandfather now, and your dad now being a great grandfather, the amount of, I think, joy that's being missed because of disharmony is unfortunate, to say the least. Has it ever been your prayer to have all reconciled and to have a finally fully functional family in interaction?
I would say yes, that's part of the problem, because I had written some letters home from England asking my folks about relationship, because I saw that my folks would have to learn how to talk with their children as adults, rather than as teenagers. I came to that awareness, and because I got 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and we really do not talk. I haven't talked really with one of the brothers and one of the sisters in about 10 years, and the other other brother and the other sister maybe once or twice in the last couple of years.
Is that just organically happened? Did you guys have a falling out, or what?
Personally, I believe some of it was the way my dad modeled interpersonal communication. The reason I say that is because my sister asked my dad at the 50th wedding anniversary how mom and dad got together, and dad just kind of, it was a real small private thing, and dad just kind of looked and ignored. And I turned around in support of my sister. So I had already figured out, well, how long after you got back from Korea did you meet mom and get married and all that? Because I had figured out that my dad got back about May. He got married to mom in October. And 9 months later, in July, I was born. And dad just ignored all that, So dad, to really talk about anything private, it's been very difficult, I believe.
Did your experience in the military draw you closer to God or push you further away?
Both. Neutral. My experience in the military made me question how come there were so many different paths through the Bible. And then last week in December 76, I had taken some hash and got into this deep thinking that I'm noted for. And a thought that came into my head that just outruled or overruled any other thought be like 144 font, bold face. It's grace by faith. That's part of the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me, so that in some ways brought me a little bit closer, but it was actually in some ways the relationship with my ex-wife and the challenges there and some different things that some of the spiritual experiences we both had separately and together that really made me wrestle more with God.
Right.
Because that took me way outside my Missouri Synod Lutheran theology.
Was the military your escape from all of that, or did you want to for a long time to join the military, or did you think it was just natural because your dad went?
Some of it was natural, some of it I don't know. The problem that I had is all through high school, being I was good with livestock and judging, and I got my dad's nickname all through high school. And then I went into the Air Force and actually ended up doing the same thing my dad did on basically the same model airplane. So it's like I wasn't quite able to really separate my identity out of myself until I went over to England and went from the trainers T-33, T-37s over to England on F-111s. And going from a standby force to, hey babe, we're at the point of the javelin for DOD, Department of Defense.
You know what I'm saying? So, coming out of the military, back into the real world, interaction with your father, you ended up leaving again to go back to school. The years after you left home for him not talking to him, to you're getting married, how long of a time frame was that?
February 78 was when the fallout, and I got engaged in fall of 79.
And did you talk to him at all during your marriage?
Very little. There was no father-son talk of any type because my folks were instantly negative with the ex-wife. I mean, she was never accepted into the family. Right or wrong,
Did that affect the relationship you had with your ex-wife?
How it did, I don't know, but yes, it did.
And subsequently your children as well?
Definitely my children. Because
you
my dad did do some criticism
of them?
about me and my ex-wife while we were still married to my son when he was about 13 years old. So, yeah.
Did your son ever blame you for anything to do with that interaction with him and his grandfather?
Not that it's been expressed.
Do you believe that he thinks that somehow you are too one-sided with your viewpoint about who is right and wrong in the dynamics going on today?
With my dad and me?
Yeah, well, not just that, but do you think him in particular views you as being one of the people that are just too stubborn, I guess would be the word, to really budge when it comes to finding the right and wrong, for the real right and wrong in a problem during the relationships?
I don't think so. I mean, I might be wrong. You'd have to ask him.
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your relationship with him, with your
my son?
Mm-hmm.
5. He has definitely stepped up to be a good father with his girlfriend. So on that, I'd definitely give him an 8 as far as stepping up, being into the father role.
But for you and him, it's around a 5.
Yeah, things could be better.
What in your mind could you do on your end, not on his, to make it achieve a level around 8 or 9? What could you personally do you think, that you can control that could make it exponentially better to about an 8 or a 9?
Probably reaching out, contacting him once a week or so instead of him always contacting me would probably be a start. Would probably put up to 7.
How long do you guys speak on the phone when you do speak, if you do speak on the phone?
With my son, it's maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
Because you just have nothing to talk about, or does it feel awkward to talk to him?
Not so much awkward as compared to talking with my dad. You know, it flows pretty good.
If there was one thing you could tell him that you think he needs to hear that you have not said to him, um, what would that be?
Well, I told him I thought he's been stepping up to be a good father. I don't know if I had really complimented him enough as far as stepping up into the role of parenting his mom.
So you
And
could
the
do some.
responsibility.
You could encourage him a lot more, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, the reason I'm asking a bunch of that along that line of the questioning is this: right? That when you mentioned, like I said, as soon as you mentioned the father issue with your side, there was an instantaneous flash for me to kind of touch on that a little bit, because I think a lot of people, we try and find things to distract from dealing with some stuff that we may consider either too heavy, or we're not equipped to deal with, or you're not sure it will do anything to rectify the situation as we see it. Um, your interest in politics, um, I think, could be an easy distraction from something that could be more um, substantive in your life, and that would be the fostering of something that you didn't have. Um, we can become quite complacent in having what we say, okay, we didn't have that relationship with my father, and if it doesn't happen with my children, it's generational, or that's just how it's going to be, or I've done just a little bit better and that's enough. um, because I think that your kids um, want to see a outreach from you, but a genuine outreach from you. Um, and while you're looking almost for this exact same thing, and so both of you are like this, and no one's moving in. You're both waiting for the first one to make the move. Um, but I think as the fatherhead, I think it's called for you to do something that you required your own dad to do for you. And because you recognize it now in what your dad should have done, I think that's a call for you to do the exact same thing that you wanted him to do. Um, Not the conversation of treating you like an adult, but the craving of that deeper relationship, a father like relationship, but not even just because you think it should exist, or you're trying to get something out of it because it exists. You want it to exist. I think you are the linchpin to changing the whole dynamic that your father set, that he probably got from his father and from his father. Um, the fact that you recognize that there are things that are stagnant, missing, and needed to be changed, the only person that could kickstart that, I think, is you. Um,
And that was all driven by anger, because I was mad at Child Protection Services for not inviting me to being part of the solution.
so
You know,
that's
so
so that's solvable.
God's got an interesting sense of humor.
Yeah, and that's solvable though. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
solvable.
You know, it I did things there that the CD counselor talked to me. He says I did a lot more in my 6 years recovery work than he knew even existed out there.
Do you want to have a robust and deep relationship with your children?
In my head, yes. In my heart, and my back is going flip-flopping, which means it doesn't really want to make a commitment to doing that.
Why is that?
I don't not I'm resentful, maybe. Why do I have to prime the pump, so to speak? Resentful, a little bit not knowing where to, in a sense, make the intercept with their life. You know that they got their life to live and stuff like that. Where do I support or whatever, and where do I,
Stay away from.
let them grow and go and be there, that when everything hits the fan, that I've been able to model about being able to bounce up and clean yourself off and keep on trucking, and I'll be there to help them do the same with their life.
I think as a parent, that's the toughest call to make because you don't really know when you're overstepping. At least you don't, unless you ask. But you feel like you can overstep and you can understep, and the line is so thin that you feel like at any point in time, both could happen, and sometimes at the same time.
Especially when you don't have a good model to work with.
Right, right. But the advantage is the one advantage you have that you have. Oop,
Yeah, I'm here.
the one advantage you have that you didn't have when you were growing up, is that your children can still talk to you. It may not be robust and deep yet, but you can talk to them. I'll
My
let you
daughter
in.
will go deep with me.
Well, I'll let you in on a secret here in a minute that I've had privy information to that you don't know yet, but it's been good. Some of them, one in particular, doesn't necessarily want to hear that you love them. Although that's a very good thing that they want to hear, but they really want to see it in action. And that's particularly your son. He's been in the chat today, and has expressed a couple of things, and I think it's good for you to be aware of it, because if there's going to be a mending of the bridge, I think it's good for not only for him to hear your side, but for you to hear his. He said growing up that there was not a whole lot of exchange of either expression, statements, or actionable love. Would that be correct?
Yeah, basically correct. Part of me, I grew up in a German Lutheran family, and I really didn't know the vocabulary for any feeling words until after I was married for 2 months, and the mother of my children had me go to treatment, and that's where I learned about feelings and emotions.
Hmm. And I can tell that there is still um, a fear of stepping into that realm of emotional connection on your end, especially when you have never known it. It's not something that you grew up with. It's not part of your psyche. It's not part of your nature. Embracing that leaves you volatile. It leaves you open, um, and it's a scary location because you're not in what we would consider control of yourself. Um, I can assure you about this though. Um, the rewards far outweigh the risk of being vulnerable, especially if your son, at the age he's at, is wishing for that connection. And he is wanting that connection. It's not even like he does not want it, he wants it. Um, and just like you approach the military, and the same way you approach your calling to expose certain things in the world, I think if that application of energy was applied to the relational things in your world, your son and your daughter, namely your son, and it's no accident that it's your son that's having the most disconnect, because you and your father had the same disconnect. It's generational, and that's why I say it's up to you being the one to see it, to break it. Um, he wants to have that deeper bond, but I do believe that you're the one to kickstart it. Um, I understand that your heart, your head's saying yes, and your emotions are saying that's because it's new to you, and I mean new as in not from birth. Okay, um, that side of man, and I don't mean mankind, I mean men, is always a freakish, scary, unsure, unstable location to feel like you have to be in. But if you're trying to save people, um, and open their eyes to things, your journey starts with you. I can give you an example on my end, right? I have the almost the exact same thing happening with my eldest, right? Him and I don't talk. But this, you remember when you said that you didn't know how far to step, and if you overstep and if you understep that whole location there, um, that's where I was. I was in the place of I don't know how far to step, or if I've overstepped, or if I've shown too little or too much, and I'm in that space where I'm just releasing them to their own decisions and letting them come to the realization that my goal was never for harm, but for good. Because in my own words, I can't explain that to them. You understand? I had to come to that conclusion, but the only way I could come to that conclusion is understanding one big thing. I have to engage that emotional side to me that has that want for them to be better, but also want them to know I care. Um, you're in a tight
That's
spot.
Is that why I have such a challenge with the thought of having a relationship with a female?
Yes.
Because I wouldn't even know what to do. But because of the dysfunction, because I ended up being a stay-at-home caretaker, dad, father, part-time worker with my ex-wife, and being a oldest caretaker, pig farmer for my dad, I really don't know what unconditional love would look like in a relationship with the female.
Mm-hmm. And
That
that's
making
something that
any sense?
got yeah. Oh, trust me, it makes lots of sense. Um, do you have really only two choices at this point in your walk. And I don't mean just your physical walk and your people to people walk, but your spiritual walk. You have to start also making, and I think this is also stemming from your view of God, um, allowing Him to fully do what He has to do. Part of that allowing is understanding that you're talking to the one entity that can fix everything. And once you understand who He is, you can understand better what He's capable of. And it's not even a matter of if He can do something, it's a matter of when. And it's up to Him how. You have children that really do want that break in the curse. I'm just judging by what how his interaction was in the chat. He wants to break that curse broken. Um, so that flip flop that you're feeling, you have to strategize and pick a side. As a man talking to a man, you have to make it a decisive decision. And the fickleness is not very healthy for anyone in the circle, including especially yourself. It's not healthy. Um, the first decision you have to make is deciding to find out who God really is. And from there, He takes care of a lot of stuff after that. The second thing you have to do is really have a communication to your son about, not just about random things, about what he would like to see as a demonstration of love. Not what you think he might want, but what he actually is looking for as an expression from you about love.
Which to me goes with that 5 love languages.
Right.
You gotta do it with what the person receiving it thinks is love, and not what feeds your own ego thinking is the right love thing.
So you have the tools. You have the tools now to do all the things necessary to rectify and undo and stop the history that's been perpetuated upon you in your life that has passed on, so that his 8 level parenting can move to 10 level parenting because your level of parenting has now upgraded as well. And he'll see that. He gets to exemplify it. So now you start to create a pattern where there was none. And that's a great, like, an amazing thing to have vision for. My last question is this: if you had one thing to tell your son and your daughter that would profoundly impact their life, what would that be?
I'm amazed, or I'm thrilled that they have been able to balance as well as they have, considering the upbringing, their teenage years, the chaos that they went through.
Would you say you're proud of them?
Yes, I am.
I think that's what they want to hear. The more often you can say that to them, I think that would do an exponential amount to repairing that bridge. Especially it being a sincere one. You have a long journey to discovering that emotional connection that God has given both to the spiritual side and the human side of us. And I only advise this is that you don't try to stunt it. Don't run from it. Don't be shy with tackling it head on. Um, because the end result is going to be so amazing that you will have the you can look back at your upbringing and think, man, I'm glad I don't have to have my kids live through that anymore. And I think that's what he wants for you, is to have that bond built between you and your kids. um, I'll continue to make sure that I pray for you on that vein. um, but I do also want to have you back on, not on this channel, but on my Rumble, to discuss the other things that we have in common. um, because
That's about 90%.
Yeah.
One of the facilitators for
Yeah.
one of the groups I said, he says
Uh-huh.
when you get truly transparent with people, you got from 7 to 15 major points of disagreement unless you got that relationship bucket filled with love and trust and honesty and respect.
Yeah.
And I think our disagreements are about 3.
There you go. So I do want to have you. I'll be in touch with you about that one. So we'll have that one on Rumble though.
Okay.
Because I
Hey,
know that
I'm-
I know a lot of the things you think and I think can't be said on YouTube, unfortunately. So I want to encourage, and it's Marcus is your son, right? Marcus is his name.
Yes, Marcus Lucas.
Yes. So I do. If you're still listening, Marcus, it is still a two-way street as well. Okay, and I know what you've expressed that you would like to see, but there should be some understanding on your end as to what is being worked with. Okay, there is a history that has to be worked past in order to get to where you both want to get to. So patience is the key at this point. But that's, I mean, I'm not saying that. I want to make sure that you understand, Marcus, that you are validating your points of view, and that's good. But it's a very it's a balancing act. Okay, and you both have to put equal effort to keep it level. One can't be putting more than the other, but you both have to try and stay pretty level and consistent about it, because it'll get repaired. As long as God's in the mix there, it'll be repaired. My Rumble channel is in the banner of my YouTube channel. So if you go to my YouTube channel, on the bottom right corner is the Rumble link, and that'll take you straight to the Rumble channel. Okay, that's if you go there, banner, Rumble key, it'll take you straight away. Thanks, Mitch. I'll be in touch about the other podcast, and we'll go from there. But thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
For those of you who are in the midst of the same type of issue with struggling to communicate with your kids, a good thing to watch would be this right here. So I'm going to make that plug right now. It's perfect plug for this commercial. So you guys enjoy the commercial. Awesome. So I'll leave the link for that right here in the chat so you guys can have it. Please go sub if you have not yet. It is vital that you guys check it out. It's really good stuff. Daddy Daughter Talk is the name of it. And this is the link to it right there. Okay. So we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Too Strong tonight. We'll be talking about that Drake curse thing. And hopefully you guys will be there. Like, share, subscribe, Straight Talk, enjoy it. And as I always say, wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight, the dreams for if dreams die. Rely on yourself and